Hi, welcome to day 3 of Comic-Con at Home. My name is Beth Hiley here for BoardGameGeek, and I am joined by Sarah Erickson from Renegade Game Studios. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And you have a title that might be familiar to some audiences from Japan, which is Gudetama, the tricky egg card game, which, if you're not familiar, is from the same studio that did make Hello Kitty. And Gudetama literally translates to lazy egg. So I'm interested to see how they take that cartoon concept and translate it into a card game.
So this, like you said, is Gudetama, the tricky egg card game. And in this game, you are trying to not score points because you would like to be lazy, of course.
And there you go.
Sense. This little lazy egg just doesn't want to get out of bed, doesn't want to go on any adventures. He just wants to stay curled up and enjoy his nice resting place, which I can very much relate to. I don't know about anybody else out there, but I think this little egg has it figured out. So in this game, it's a trick-taking game, and it's very straightforward. All you're going to do on your turn is you're going to play a card from your hand. And if you're leading, then you can play any card you want. But if you have a card out there on the table already, somebody's already played a card, you then have to play either a card that is equal to or higher than that card, or if you can't do that, you have to play your lowest card. So let's say, oh good, well, Lincoln's gonna throw a hand of cards out there for us. So let's say we've got an 8 that's on the table already. And then maybe in your hand, let's see, we've got, oh, there we go. Okay, we've got an 8 out on the board, and this is your hand. So you could play an 8 if you wanted to. You could play one of your 9s, you could play that 14, but you can't play, say, like a 6 or something, so that would be lower. So let's just say, there we go, you play a 9, great. Play would continue around the table, depending on how many people are playing. This is a 2 to 6 player game. So you would keep playing cards. And then at the point where somebody had no cards in their hand that were higher or equal to that number, they have to play the lowest number card that they have. So the good news is, and then that will sweep that and we'll start with a new trick. So that would end that trick. That goes away, and then we start a new trick. So, and everybody would keep playing. Everybody would play exactly one card out, and then when everybody's played a card, whoever had the highest card number would win that trick. Luckily, though, none of the cards count for points at all until the very last trick. So what is really tricky about this, that sounds really easy, right? Like you would be tempted to just, every time you lead the trick, every time you've taken all the cards and it's your turn to play, you just want to play, say, your highest number. If you do that every time, then you're going to run out of all of those high cards, and then you're going to get forced to play your really low cards. And then on that very last trick, you're not going to have any low cards left in your hand to be able to play. And so you might end up getting stuck with that very last trick and getting a whole bunch of points if you're not very strategic about the way that you lead tricks and the way that you play cards during the game. So it is surprising, because it has so few rules in this box, how much strategy there really is once you actually start throwing those cards on the table. But I really like it. It's actually a variant of Cucumber, if anybody's played that. There was a Friedman Freese game that came out a few years ago called 5 Cucumbers, which was also a variant on the original classic card game Cucumber. So if you played either of those, really enjoyed them. This is a great party game, and this is also very similar. There are a few other little tricky rules, but that's the gist of the game. And each one of these cards has just fantastic little quotes from the lazy egg, fun little things about him. If you aren't familiar with this character, there's actually kind of a fun story about him. So this was, like you said, it's from Sanrio. They make Hello Kitty, and they thought, well, it would be really fun to see if our fans and our audience could come up with another character in this world. And so this is a great shot of the lazy egg. And so they actually did a fan contest and said, submit any of your food-based characters and their backstory. And we're going to do a vote and pick one that we make t-shirts and other stuff out of. And we'll do a couple episodes with it. So they did this contest, and the character that won was actually a salmon fillet with legs, like just this really upbeat, happy character, these little silly legs sticking out of a salmon fillet. And it was great. People liked it. But they also decided to put up merchandise and do some promotion for the second place character, which happened to be Gudetama, which is ironic and I think hilarious that Gudetama couldn't even get his act together enough to actually win the contest.
To win the contest.
That he only got second, which is perfect. But once they actually started putting stuff out there for Gudetama, it far outsold, it was far, far more popular than anything for the salmon fillet. And so he kind of stuck around because I think he is really relatable. People do enjoy this little lazy egg yolk hanging out in his little shell and not wanting to come out into the world. I can't quite read these, but yes, those are cute. So yeah, that's Gudetama. This is actually coming out at the end of September. And this is just a $15 small box card game. So if you're familiar with, say, Fox and the Forest Duet, Blood of an Englishman, those are all in that little tiny card box. Super easy for traveling or just sticking on your shelf. They will fit anywhere. It's actually just like all of these ones right there. So we've got our
and also covers from 2 to 7 players as well. So this has got a huge player range for such a small box game.
Yeah, this is fantastic for anybody who has a big family and wants something that literally everybody can play. Like I said, this is a variant on Cucumbers. I played Cucumbers with I believe she was 5 or 6 years old at the time, my niece, and she could throw a card out there. She understood the rules well enough and just really got into it. And it was nice to have something we could play with everybody. So that is a big bonus.
I'm wondering if you're able to talk a little bit, since this is an external IP, because Gudetama is owned by Sanrio, what the process was like, if you're able to share, on sort of getting the rights to use this character that is owned by another company.
That's a great question. So we actually partnered with this fantastic company, Oni Games, and they're part of Oni Press, which this is Comic-Con. Oni Press is a really well-known comic book publisher, and they were working with Sanrio to do comic books based on many of their different titles. You may have seen a couple of these. They did, in fact, Tsuko comic book, Gudetama. They've done a few other things with Sanrio, and so this was part of their partnership with them, and so they actually worked into their contract to do games as well. So this is by one of the designers. Steve Ellis is actually the game designer that's in-house at Oni Games. So he put this together, designed it, their team did the graphic design, and then we're doing the publishing of it, which is kind of the other half. Like, they put everything together in a nice little digital package, and then we do all the things that have to do with the physical product. Since they are used to making comic books, which are a very different mechanical process, and also a different process. Like, we have a great relationship with BGG and all of these other customers who already know and love our games. So we get to tell them about it. And Oni Games, as part of a comic book publisher, don't necessarily have all those relationships. So it's been awesome. Right. We love working with them. They also did the Tea Dragon Society with us, a very similar situation where the Tea Dragon Society graphic novels have been super popular. The artwork in them is fantastic. So they said it would be so much fun to turn this into a game. And so we partnered with them to get the Tea Dragon Society out there into the public eye on the game side. And now it was so successful, we're actually doing a second one, and we just announced that this week. The Tea Dragon Society card game follow-up is called Autumn Harvest, and that's coming out later this year, in fact.
Wonderful. I mean, what a great partnership that totally plays on both of your strengths, where you guys with the production and them with the graphics and art design. I mean, that just seems like a marriage made in heaven. Yeah, and it just really couldn't be better. Steve Ellis, who leads that department, is a longtime store owner. So he's a retailer. He understands how board games in the market work really well, and just a wonderful, sweet guy who's honestly just one of our friends. And we really were excited when he said he wanted to do this thing. We were 100% on board. There's just
nothing better that we could be doing than working with our friends, making things that we love, and getting to work with really cool licenses like this. So we're just really, really happy to be working with Oni Press.
We do have a question from Game Jedi 84 from the chat. Just since you had mentioned Tea Party Society, what are the differences between the original and now this upcoming one that's coming out later this year?
That's a really good question. So we haven't announced a whole bunch about Autumn Harvest yet. So we'll be sharing more of that at our Renegade convention that we're doing later this year that we actually haven't announced yet either. So we'll be making sure people get to play it and doing demos of it. But one of the main things to know is that it is both a standalone game and an expansion for Tea Dragon Society. So you can play it with the original game if you'd like to, but if you don't own the original game or for whatever reason you want to just have this one thing by itself, you can play it as a standalone as well. So there will be a lot of similarities, and there are a lot of things that you'll just immediately out of the box be able to know and play and not have to read through too many rules.
Well, I'm wondering, Nikki has been doing such a lovely job kind of just giving us this rolling feed of cards moving around. Since Gudetama does play 2 players, if Lincoln is within shouting distance, if you guys might be willing to play around between the 2 of you, perhaps directed a bit by Sarah.
Yeah, I've been playing.
That would be
I think we got it right. You play until somebody has to drop to the lowest one, then that trick is lost, and then because you don't want cards, and then you draw back up to 7, and then do another hand, right? Oh.
Yeah, so you're going until a certain scoring point, and so you are going to play several hands. But if you guys just want to play out one hand of cards, that would be pretty quick.
If you get that card that says, "This is how I exercise," you got to put that back on the green screen again. I want to see it. It's phenomenal.
Let's find it.
Oh, yeah, find it.
Yeah, that one's good. Oh, wow. Let's see if I can slide in a window here.
Nice, nice. This is how I exercise.
Maybe Derek can switch to
that
that
looks like
other.
some good yoga going on right there. I like it.
I like that he's disconnected from his egg white, though.
His egg white.
Yeah.
And how his shell occasionally makes a guest star as well as sort of like his former home or current home, since he's so lazy he doesn't want to leave it.
Yeah. Yeah. The little cartoons that they made of this character are also just absolutely incredibly hilarious. But I will warn you that the song that they play as the intro to them is very catchy. So be prepared to get that stuck in your head.
Now, so were all the illustrations then created specifically for this game by Oni as well?
No, so these are from the stuff that Sanrio gave us to work with, that they presented to Oni Press, but then all of the stuff around the card was created just for this game. So we did graphic design, but not new art, to make sure that it was still in that Gudetama style. And there is just a lot of really good Gudetama art out there already. Some of this may have come from the comic books. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Well, it looks like Lincoln and Nikki are ready to go with a round of Gudetama. So you guys can narrate who's going first.
With 13, that's pretty terrifying.
And
That's
Sarah, 14.
Somebody's gonna lose one of those nice ones.
Is it? What's the card range number wise?
1 through 14.
1 to 14, yeah.
Also, if you play a 1 as the very last card, I believe there's something about both players taking their points. Is that right?
It does look like it shows them all being pulled out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a special rule if you play the 1 in the very last trick.
Okay, so someone has played a 1. So that means that.
So who took that one?
That was Nikki. She just got that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. You triggered it with the 1. So we each get points, I guess, on that one.
Okay.
Is that only for the last trick of the game?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we don't know it. Yeah, that was what I thought you just said. I didn't realize it was the last trick. Okay, well, that one's that one. There you go, Nikki.
I'm going to double check this rule book here really quick. Make sure we're doing this right. Yeah, when a 1 is played in the final trick of the round, every player will score the card they played instead of just the player who won the trick. The 1s don't have any special effect when played in other tricks.
Anyway, that's fine.
Also, there is another important rule I didn't mention. When you play a 14, you will win that trick, but whoever played the 14 gets to pick who leads the next trick.
And I'm assuming that could
can't
be
be
also
themselves.
Interesting.
It can't be themselves. Okay.
Why don't you lead? Because I'm bad.
Right. So just to explain a little bit more, so everybody starts out with 7 cards in each hand, and then you just put the rest of the cards aside. You don't need those. And you're just going to play until you run out of those 7 cards. So each round, you are going to play a card, like I said, equal to or higher than the value of the highest card played so far in this trick. And if you can't do that, then you play the lowest card you have in your hand. And then if there is a tie for the highest card played, the most recent person to have played wins the trick, and then will beat the next trick. And each trick is just 1 card each.
Yeah, we had another comment from the chat as well saying, from Game Jedi 84 saying, I want this as artwork. And I would say, hey, I've actually turned quite a few card games and mounted them and framed them as a card art. So, and I think, yeah, this would be awesome as card art to just buy the game to display on the wall.
I love it. That's hilarious. Yes,
Michelle
I think
is
that's
quite
a fantastic
smitten with
idea.
this.
And if you do really like Gudetama, go and check out Oni Press's website. They have some other stuff for it too. And it's just a really cute property. Oh, what does that one say?
Shh, be quiet because I'm definitely meditating right now.
With that voice for sure. So yeah, each trick you're just playing 1 card, and it doesn't matter if there's a 1 or anything like that. You just play 1 card, and then whoever had the highest wins that trick. So you'll play those 7 tricks or 7 cards out 1 at a time, and then you'll see who wins that very last trick, and then that'll be points, and you just keep playing many hands of 7 at a time until, let me look at the final scoring. Let me double check. I don't want to tell you that wrong. So special cards, the final scoring, yep, you win. The game ends when some player exceeds 21 points. And then whoever has the least number of points wins.
How long do you think a typical game would take?
There you go. I would say it really, like the back of the box says that this is about a 20-minute game, and I think that's really realistic. So it's possible that you'll have a whole bunch of players, they'll be at like 19 points. And if you're playing with 7 players, maybe that will take you a little bit longer. But most of the time, you'll get a big chunk of points at once, and you'll end up getting to that. One of the players will end up getting to 21 pretty quickly. So I think 20 minutes is about right. This isn't meant to be a super intense game. You play your cards really, really fast because there are times when you can make some pretty important decisions, but a lot of the time you're just throwing out the card that you have to throw out. So you do it pretty quickly. Are you guys playing your second hand? Awesome.
There's a tie when you
Let's
do
see
it. What if there's actually a tie when you play? Do you want to, in that case, do you just want to play higher then to win it?
It depends. That's part of the strategy for sure. But if there is a tie, then whoever played the most recent card will take the trick and then lead the
That's
next
yours,
one.
Nikki P.
Which is probably my favorite. I personally love trick-taking games, and the fact that you can have a game that on its surface is so simple, it's easy to teach, the decisions are really easy, and yet we're already talking about like this really fine strategy of choosing who might lead the next trick, and you know, there's a lot of fine nuance, and I think that's the hallmark of a good quality trick-taking game is one that you can, the entry level to learn it is very easy, but then the decision making in it is very nuanced.
And I do think that's really great about this game because anybody can play this. You can teach this to someone who has never seen a game before in just a few minutes. I actually had this experience recently with The Fox in the Forest. So I have a friend that I met through dog training, and she's this awesome person who has never played a game. Like, she didn't grow up in a family playing Monopoly. She hadn't ever heard of a trick-taking card game before. She has literally never played games. And so I was like, wow, where do I start with this? And so I gave her some options, and she liked the way that Fox and Forth looked, and I explained it a little bit, and she liked how it sounded kind of feisty. So we played it, and the first game, she was just learning the rules, but kind of getting little pieces of it. And then the next time we played, she's like, okay, I'm going to try some strategies. I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to win this time. And she tried the shooting the moon strategy, which is sort of a classic trick-taking thing, where she tried to get 0 points, which in the Fox and the Forest will win you the game. So she was really trying so hard to like make sure that every time she played, she didn't win that trick. And she ended up getting close to beating me. Not quite, but very close. But it was really neat to see that you could take someone who was so not a gamer and teach them a trick-taking game in just a few minutes. Like, this entire experience between game 1 and game 2 probably, and the explanation, was about 15 minutes. Which is important because if you have somebody who hasn't played games before, they don't necessarily want to sit through a half-hour explanation before they start touching something and playing with it. And again, with Gudetama, this is a perfect example. You can hand out the cards, people get to start touching them, they look at the silly stuff on the cards, and they can start just throwing cards out there, and maybe they don't know what they're doing yet, but at least they're doing something. And eventually they'll get to the point where they can decide some strategy. See, this is how fast this is going. They're just throwing cards out there like crazy. And of course, you two know how to play games. So.
Well, and I think this one also, from a trick-taking standpoint, if you just look at that as a whole genre, this one is not reliant on knowing a lot of that terminology that I think can be intimidating to people who've never done trick-taking before, like what a trump suit is, and what leading is, and what, breaking a suit is. And whereas this one just sort of has, and the artwork then just floats that even more to make that really, really an easy entry level.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can jump right into this one and it'll make sense, you'll get it, and everybody in the whole family can play. Going up to 7 players is pretty nice because, especially, I think, now that a lot of us are stuck at home, we're isolated from our regular gaming groups, we are trying to expand it to our family bubble. And not everybody in everybody's family plays games. Of course, all of us watching probably are the gamers, but that doesn't mean that everybody in our household wants to play them, or will put up with playing a really long, complicated game that maybe some of us would want to play. So this is a good way to just get everyone around a table.
Well, Sarah, I'm delighted that you're able to tell us all the ins and outs of Gudetama, Gudetama, the Tricky Egg card game. Let's give it its full long title for a not very big game. And just remind everyone who's watching just when this is going to be available.
So this is coming out September 9th. This is a $15 card game, and it works for 2 to 7 players, plays in about 20 minutes, and ages 7 and up is our recommended age rating for this one. And you can find this at your local gaming store or anywhere that sells games.
Well, that was Sarah Erickson, everyone, from Renegades Game Studios, and thank you so much.
Thanks, bye.